thank you very much for turning up. When we first, I think it was Andy. We met Andy via a call after speaking to Renee, and someone came up with the idea of perhaps sponsoring the awards, the Cut Above Awards, and it seemed like a nice thing to do. And I'm sure people in the BFE were curious as to what happened to Lightworks after all those, in those intervening years, and it was a nice idea. And then at the actual awards this year, Ferg, I'm very, very grateful. Ferg said, why don't we kind of tell people what Lightworks is up to these days? And I'm thinking, that's a really good idea, because we've got some plans that we'd like to show everyone, and we can't talk about it until the actual stuff is done, the business dealings to be able to put together the plans that we've got. So, we went to the, I went to the actual award ceremony, and I still couldn't talk about anything. And the days were going by because we had 2 English lawyers and 2 Danish lawyers, and frankly, pissing us off with the detail. And we were very worried that we were going to miss this deadline to be able to present both here and at the media production show tomorrow and Thursday. And thankfully, all of the stars were aligned, and we can actually announce something that we think is really significant, not only as part of the revitalization of Lightworks, but also, you all must gather that LWKS is the short form for Lightworks. Not only revitalize the interest in the professional area of Lightworks, but also in the things that we're trying to do that are greater than just the editing, but the workflow that allows people to be more efficient, work in a modern way, not be constrained by having to have huge amounts of expensive tin next to them, or having to, it's software, but you need to configure an Ubuntu Linux server to be able to use it, that kind of thing. So we're very pleased to say that all the ducks have aligned, and we can kind of work with this announcement, which you guys are getting first of all, but hopefully will become kind of common knowledge and interest throughout the content creation industry. So that's kind of like the who bit on the presentation. And what we'd like to do tonight, not only talk a bit about Lightworks and editing and things like that, but also introduce, we've acquired a company which has very much got the same kind of values as us and very much interested in the kind of things that we would like to do. IO Gates was formed in 2003, and as I like to say, there's lots of God in the detail. They've been through making sure that you've got the right things in the products and the software and the services to actually address real projects and not just be sort of something theoretical. So we've acquired IO Gates. Jesper, who's here, has joined us, as well as Tobias, who's their CTO, who's an important part of this. And we'd just like to tell you that Lightworks hasn't disappeared. It may not have been entirely in your kind of aperture of focus for a number of years, but Lightworks has been there, and us as LWKS, we're involved in a lot of projects, and we've got a lot of good customers. The AQC software is used by NHK and Comcast and Netflix and HBO and people like that. It's used extensively throughout the industry, and there are still projects that are pretty high-end projects, as well as lots of substantial but not quite so notable projects being that Lightworks is being used on. So, it's not something that is something that we can have an endorsement on. That would be wrong, right? But everybody knows that the latest Martin Scorsese film, which is due to be released in November, is edited by a dedicated Lightworks editor and assistants, and they've got a very complex setup with, they get what they want, and we're working with them to make sure that all of the latest things that we're providing support them in their post-production. So as a little bit of a backgrounder, LWKS, we took over Lightworks and QScan. It's almost 2 years ago. They weren't really the products that wanted to be focused on by their previous owner. For many years, Lightworks has always been something where, oh, we'll put the developers on this, like the Tektronix, put them onto the playout devices. So, Grass Valley's rather famous video server is based on Lightworks code. Other things like the rough cut editor and some of the MAM software was developed by the Lightworks developers. They're always being kind of distracted to do other things. So we approached the previous owner saying, we'd like to kind of do justice to what that product is capable of and to the customers who are very loyal to it. So we approached them and they agreed that we could take over those products and buy that out. So Lightworks and QScan became ours. It was actually in September one and a bit years ago. Whilst Lightworks hasn't been something that you have had right in front of you and lots of people saying that they're using Lightworks on your kind of projects, over 4,000 people per day download Lightworks and use it. And most of those people are using it for free projects, and a certain percentage of them go for the for-pay options. I'll actually go through how it kind of fits. We have, at the prosumer and above level, we have Lightworks free, and we have what we call the Lightworks Create product, which is $10 a month. And it's perfect for people who are doing corporate communications, they work in government, they work in marketing departments, they work in all sorts of places where the edit is relatively simple, but they use a lot of graphics. So the Lightworks Create product hits that sweet spot rather nicely. And then we have the Pro, which has got all of that AAF interchange with DaVinci Resolve and Avid and Final Cut Pro and XMLs and all of those kind of things. Does all of the XD cams and ProRes and all of those kind of things that people need in the Pro software. And we put a lot of investment into Lightworks to be more updated, to look more modern, to operate in a more modern way, and also put in more features and stuff like that Lightworks needed. So that's the Pro product, which $24 a month is hardly the end of the world. And we've had the QScan product working pretty successfully with various kind of people who need content delivered to them. And we've added the IOGates company to us and their product, the IOGates React product, which, it's a collaborative platform. Think of it as a totally secure, very easy to use means of sharing media and projects and your work by giving tiny little share links to people which have permissions attached to them, so they can upload data, they can download data, they can do all sorts of stuff with it, subclipping, review and approve, delivery, and we're integrating that into the suite of products that we have at LWKS. So Lightworks is a standalone product and reasonably successful in particularly the prosumer market, and our intention is to move it more and more into the sort of sweet spot of Pro. QScan is a successful product in its own right, and IOGates React is a successful product in its own right. But if you combine them, as I like to put it, I often get it the wrong way around, but the whole is greater than the sum of the parts if you can actually integrate these in a really clever way. And that's what we'll be showing you today. And just to let you know a little bit about us, quite a number of these people are here today. This is our industry. We're not a tech company that's selling you tools that are tech. We're part of the creative industry. We've all been involved in this for a long time. And so James, who's skulking at the back, he's our chief investor and has been helping making these very big investments into Lightworks and IOGates and QScan to bring them to a level and to integrate them so that they become compelling end-to-end things that people want to use. I'm there. I've got a bit of a history. If you'd asked me 20 years ago if I'd be selling Lightworks, I would have said bollocks. But things have changed. This is much more coincident with my values than working for a company where, it's product. right? We all know that issue. We've got Matt Sanford, who's the product manager for Lightworks. We've got Daniel, who looks after our cloud strategy and the QScan. So he'll be looking after the IO gates. And we have Jesper, who's just joined us, who is the CEO of IO Gates and is now going to be a key element in getting the integration right, the workflows right. Jesper's got a history in post-production that goes back to 86, there you go, 85, 86, working with a lot of the high-end post-production companies, the pioneers of DI, the people who have been pushing back those barriers, and Jesper's been working to solve those issues for some time, particularly with IO Gates. And that's enough from me. Let's get on with the good stuff.
Peter. There you go. So, welcome to IO Gates React. As you know, my name was Jasper and founded IO Gates in 2003. Typical in the basement of my house at that time. And in the winter of 2004, we actually had a website where you could upload uncompressed SD files and transcode them to multiple formats. A bit early to take in clients. But a lot has happened since, and this is what I would like to show you. We have here the website I've logged into, and we can have a library on the left side where you can upload any type of files. Regardless of types, be audio, video, still pictures, Word, PDF, whatever. And there's no limit to size, of course. And in the middle here, we keep the player, so you at any time can go in and select your files and view them. The player, you can use spacebar to start and stop. See if I can find a better one here. You can use the arrow keys to go frame step backwards and forwards, and JKL to speed change backwards and forwards. At the top right, we show the source file that's been uploaded and the formats that is created from the source file. So we never touch the source file, it's always intact. In the middle, we have the menu bar that can be customized for each client's wishes. So the best thing to start with is to upload some files. We have about 7 or 8 different ways of uploading and ingesting files. So I'm just going to select the easiest one, which is basically to drag files directly from your computer into the IO Gates library. So this top folder, I have 3 different subfolders. So I can just drag, if I can figure out how to drag, in here. Just select the root library and it will start uploading. I'm just going to close this one. It will create the subfolder structure too and start processing the files that in each subfolder. And while we do this, we like to show you how to use sharing, because sharing is the main feature in IO Gates, how to share files but also to receive files into your workflows. So from the sharing menu, we have an address book where you can add your contacts in. So the first thing is I can search for my name, drag it over into the email to window. But we also have a feature where you can add them into groups. So if you're sharing your dailies every day with a production, then instead of having to type in the email addresses for each person, we can add it into a group. So I just select the production here, and I have 2 people here. I'm just going to copy those into the email too. Then we have expire date, how long the link should be open for. You can set that. And then we have some options here, what the link should be able to do. Should be able to download or upload on the links. But really the best thing is that you can modify any share links that you've sent out after it's been sent. So you can go back and modify it. So if a client wants to have the option to download the files, then you can go in and modify that afterwards. I'm going to show you that in a second. Then you can type in a message, and is that right? Yeah. And then you just press send, and I'll just take something to drink. Sorry. Then we can go to the user options, and I've done something wrong now. I can see I've only shared this file. I think, which I really should have shared, was the top folder. And so I'm just going to go back and copy those into here, and say all contacts, and enable myself into that link, and send share. So now I've sent the top folder here. So from user options, we can now see who has access to that folder, and I'm just going to copy the link here and paste it into another tab in the browser here, and this is what your clients would see. So you can click on the folder and see the proxies here, and again use spacebar and arrow keys to frame steps. You can see the file names when it's uploaded, and you can write a comment. And you can tag this comment to a timecode, and anyone who has access to the links will receive that comment, and can go back and forth. You can start communicating. You can reply directly to a single comment, and you can edit and delete your comments. All the comments can be downloaded into a Avid marker and imported into the timeline, or you can also create PDF files with the communications. And as I said before, the links here are easy to modify. So if I open from the user options my email address, and it's not by project, it's by single emails you can modify, enable the master download, and I will also like to be able to upload on the link. I just go back into the link here and refresh it. And now you'll be able to see there's a download button for the master file, and there's also the option to upload. And all what I'm showing here is also possible to do on your cell phones. Just because there's not really a lot of people are using it to send out an empty share link or empty folder and ask the receiver to upload files into that folder. Instead of receiving a Dropbox link and a retransfer link and then have to download that first and then upload it into React, then it's easier to just send out an empty folder. And you can also add files to the folder. So I have this folder. If I want to add that to on my share link here, I can right-click and copy the folder, go into the top folder here, and paste it in, and refresh the link. And now you have, then now you have access to those 5 files. This was all done without any password protection. So we have basically 4 layers of protection. We can use MFA, multi-factor authentication, where you receive your code on a different device, normally a cell phone. And we have the digital right management, which encrypts the URL codes, so you cannot download or hack into the codes. And then we can watermark the files either by a regular logo, a text, or the receiver's email address can also be added. And this last one is for larger companies where you can use single sign-on, so all the user access is controlled by the client. But I'm just going to multi-factor authenticate this folder. So I'm just going to go down and click it down here on the button, and you'll see it get a shield out here. So now when I refresh the link, I will be prompted with a password that I receive on my cell phone. So it's 282, like that. And I'm just going to verify that. This is the most common way of protecting the links, which gives really a good security, and it's easy for anyone to use. And if you don't want to rely on the SMS service, you can use an authenticator app on your cell phone as an option. I'm just going to pull off the shield here again. Then what we have talked about here is all manual download on the share links, for example, and upload. And that's okay for single files, but if you have a dailies production where you want to download automatically all the dailies every day, or the DIT wants to upload files, then we have a way to do that. We have a desktop app where you can use the share links here. I can simply just take my share link here, and this desktop app is an app you can install on your workstations or laptops, servers, and you can add a share link into that, and that way you link your top folder here in the cloud onto your local computer, in this case my laptop, and you can see the files just like it was in the cloud, but you can ask it to download the files automatically. So from the download menu here and upload, we have default 2 folders, and you can point, but you can create your own path where it should download the files to, and the same with upload. So as soon as I enable the auto download and press save, then the desktop app will start downloading the files. And the same would be for uploading. So as you as an editor can be set up a workflow where you just export your sequence into a watch folder. It uploads automatically to ArcGates. If the folder has been pre-shared with the director or producer, they will get a notification automatically that they can then reply the comments back to you. All fully secured workflow. But again, as you as an editor don't need to do anything, just drop the file into the watch folder, and you can create as many workflows as you like, really. It's really flexible the way you can do this, and you can see the files coming down here. I think that's more or less the demonstration I have here, and I will now hand you over to Matt, who's going to show you a bit of the integration we already have done to Lightworks, and how Lightworks can share links again. So I'm just going to create a share link for Matt here. So instead of emailing a link out, we can also create a link, and I'm giving rights to upload and download, and just going to call it Lightworks. And I'm going to create link and copy it, and that's all. I'll leave it to Matt.
So that's the administrative interface. The editor or the person receiving it just gets the share link, and the media appears either on the desktop or with Cloud Review, that kind of thing. So that's a very powerful administrator interface to allow you to set up all of the permissions, dynamically change the permissions, and set the security at a high enough level that people can be completely confident that the media is secure. Okay, so Matt's got his microphone.
Hopefully you can. Is that all right, David? Is that, yeah. Okay. Hello, everyone. As you heard, I'm Matthew. I'm the product manager for Lightworks. I've been with the product about 15 years now. Fell in love with it many years ago, and been hard to let go ever since. It's come a long way. I mean, it's been around for 30 years, so you've probably heard of it. There's probably been mention of the Shark, the console, the interface device to the application. It's been through quite a journey, and since being part of LWKS, we've made a big effort to sort of try and lift it out, make it more of a professional tool for editors. And Peter mentioned Scorsese and the like, and we're doing a lot of work there to try and lift Lightworks back up to where it should be. They've got a lot of downloads, a lot of people using it, but trying to add in the pro features back that the application's been missing for the last few years. So this is the entry point to the application. This is our project browser. for any of you. I know there's a couple of people in here that have used Lightworks in the past. It used to be called the lobby, very, very kooky, etc. Hopefully you'll start to see some of the new things that we've done with it. So this is the project browser. From here I can choose an existing project, and these empty thumbnails here are projects that I can fill up in space. I can also create a project if I want. The thing I want to show you just first off is the system settings, and the reason that not the coolest thing or the most unique thing about the application, but the reason for showing you this is you can actually define it as you see fit. So key assignments, if you're familiar with another application, you set them and tell it, I'm used to using an Avid, I'm used to using Premiere, for example. Makes it a bit more familiar when you come to using the keyboard shortcuts. You can change all the appearance. I've just changed the language, which I didn't want to do in the middle of a demo, because that could just end in utter disaster. So let me just turn that back to English, if it starts moving around. We could do Chinese, that could be a very slow, painful demo, and well, let's not do that. So we can change everything from the language to the layout, so I could be set up for multiple displays. We're not limited to the fixed layout. I'll come to that towards the end of the different layouts of what we've got. You can see we've got the console support, so we do support the old USB consoles, but predominantly now it's keyboard and mouse. You know, everyone's downloading it, it's using keyboard and mouse. There's an option here for enabling hardware I/O, so if you're using Blackmagic hardware, AJA hardware, it will just work. You'll be able to view on an external display. And you can see one of the things I did want to show you, and this is the reason for showing you this panel, is that the integration we've done with our QC product, QScan, is that if this is installed on a Windows system, be it a physical system or a VM, I can punch in the host name and the username and password, and then I've got a connection to QScan. I don't need to run up QScan, I just need to know that it's there. And under preferences, I set how my scan speed and priority, but what's particularly nice is that I can actually set from here that I want QScan to look at everything that I import, every file that I bring in, I want it to have a look at. And you can set, I've only got a few templates set here, but I can set for PSC, so every file that comes in, it'll be a background process, it'll be looking at that file, and it will give me a report of that file if there's anything that matches the filter, for example. And again, the templates here, they're just there as I can turn those on or off. Just depends on what's going to be available to me in the application. So lots you can do. I'm going to create a new project. I'm going to call that Matt. I'll call it Matt Demo. Demo. And then you can see there's no frame rate, so everything, the project that we create here is, it doesn't care about the frame rate. Everything you bring in, whatever frame rate it is, will play at that natural rate. On the Advanced tab here, we can set custom metadata. I will just set a field just so you can see how that works. I'm going to call that Matt Text. And you can see we can do it for assets, so that's a field for the clip, subclip, etc., or a queue, which is a marker. It can be an individual marker on a clip, or it could be a range of markers on there. Come back to my project, we'll create my project, and you can see we're in a fixed layout. As I said, I'll come to the flexible layout towards the end of the demo. And you can see the idea of fixed layout is obviously it gives you a much more better entry point into the application. You can see at the top here I've got 4 tabs which I can switch between depending on the type of work I'm doing. I'm on the Edit tab. I've got an empty sequence and a content here. The top left here is our project contents. There's nothing in the project at the moment, but these are active filters. So any clips that I bring in and open the clips filter that will appear here. Similarly for sequences and other filters, you can add those and remove those as you see fit. We can create bins underneath, multiple bins within bins, depending on the hierarchy of what you want to achieve. And then underneath that, we've got the ability to get content in. So our libraries, there's a whole host of stuff we can. So local files, that's the local files is the hard drive or the local drive on this machine. If I've got an external drive or I've got a network drive, I can bring content in from those locations as well. I've got a Dropbox location that's added in there, and you can see I've got various third-party sites. So what Jesper was saying about sharing that link is actually, if we just go back and I should have that pasted already, and in fact there it is that if I clicked on the plus icon here, you can see I can add with the cloud services. I've got IO Gates React, and I can add my share link. I believe that's the right one. I just paste that just to make sure, and I click add. So I haven't got to jump through any hoops. I haven't got to change any I haven't got to log in, I haven't got to configure anything. That content is just available to me there, and I can switch views on that, and you can see there's our subfolders. And if we traverse into those folders, just give that a double click, and you can see there's our content there that's in that particular clip. So that is a clip that's on the server. I'm not moving that. What I want to do is I want to bring that into the project, but I'm going to leave it on the server. So it's creating a link, which is a small reference file to my media, and it's still going to be streaming that from the server. What I'll just quickly do, just while I'm here, let's just do that. Oh, that's the wrong one, isn't it? Where did that go? Let's go and get the other clips here. And then we'll just grab one more from subfolder 3. So although I'm bringing those in via create, so if I look at my clips folder here, you can see I've got 3 clips there. I'm going to create this into a bin. I'm going to call that mat bin. And then I can obviously start creating more bins if I wanted to, and then start moving, dragging and dropping content between them. So there's my content. Again, as I was saying, we're streaming a proxy here, and the way that does that's very clever up here on our settings. Under video output here, we've got media playback quality. Set to automatic, so if I'm just playing a tile, it's only going to use the low-res file, the proxy. Because I'm using a connection to the React project, it's just going to it's just going to automatically use the proxy. But if I wanted to, I can switch between high-res and low-res content with a touch of a button. It doesn't move anything, doesn't change anything. It's just me just switching over at the back end as to which clip you want to use. So as I've got my content, and just right-click media, you can see I get an option here which is to localize that media. So Jesper, when his demo, gave me permission to download content and use including the high-res. So I can just tell it if I wanted to take it down from the server, put it locally to this machine, I can do. And I can just choose which one I want to bring down. And where that puts that is on our media tab here. There's just a default location on this drive, but you can add as many locations as you want on various different devices that you're using. It could be network storage, it could be externally attached storage, and that would pull it down, and I'd be able to use that. So from here, we can double click a clip. You can see I can scrub through my clip here. We can play that. One of the nice things about Lightworks is the simplicity of mark part. So wherever I click my in point and wherever I stop is my out point. So that's a mark and a part. And that's the section of the clip that's going to come down to my timeline. And I can send that in as an overwrite replace, or I can send it as an insert and push things along. So just for the sake of this, I'm just going to do that a couple of times. You can see I'm using shortcut keys for in and out, play, JK and L, they're all available. Insert that one, and then I'll just grab one more clip, take a small section of that and insert that as well. So on our timeline down here now, you can see I'm just closing that bit of black up so you can see our timeline. The colors are based on the different real IDs of the shot. So from here, probably one thing I should have mentioned is, let me just go back a bit, the different table view bin here. So for here, for example, it gives me a bit more of a information about the clips. It's telling me they're 25 frames a second. And what that's done is when I inserted those into my sequence here, if I right click here on the sequence viewer, you can see it's automatically detected it's 25 frames per second, that it's 720p, and that's what my sequence is set to. If I need to change that, I can just open up that menu, and you can see I can just cycle through with the mouse, and I'm going to get different output formats depending on how I want to send this sequence out. And that would be true if I was using hardware I/O. That's what I'd see on the output monitor. If I wanted to change I'll just put that back to 720p. If I wanted to change the frame rate, for example, if you'd had in a mixture of frame rate media, 23, 98, 25, 30, etc., is that then it makes a best guess. And what it may not be quite right, your sequence. You can obviously set the sequence frame rate as you see fit. But what we can actually do is I can actually change the frame rate of the sequence and create a copy of it. So there's the name. I want to do the whole sequence. There we are. And it's given me an entirely new sequence there, make it a bit clearer, which has not affected my master sequence. And that's going to play that 25 frame clips at 24 frames a second. That's what I'd see on my output. and whether or not you get the desired effect remains to be seen, but the point is it's doing all the necessary pull-ups, pull-downs, speed-ups, etc. to get you to the correct frame rate. I'm going to go back to the master sequence here, and then from here, down on our timeline, we can go into trimming. Quite effective in Lightworks. There's two sort of modes of trimming, simple and advanced. The simple way is just literally left clicking on a cut point. Where you click is the type of trim you're going to do. So as I'm near to the outgoing, you can see I'm seeing both sides of the cut. But if I move the mouse over there, I can then move the cut. So you can see then as I grab with the mouse or use the shortcut keys on the keyboard, I'm changing both the. Am I changing both? No, I'm not. There we go. Now I'm changing both. I'm changing both the in and the out point of the clip. Close the trim back up. I'm back into the normal editing, and depending on where I click is the type of trim I'm going to do. So this one is particularly nice. I can slide this clip up and down the timeline, or I can actually slide the clip, which means I'm changing the in and the out point. All I'm doing is left clicking to unjoin cut points. Where it gets really interesting is if we turn off auto track sync. So I want to break the link between the video and the audio. So if, for example, I wanted to trim this piece of video here, you can see I'm knocking out all my audio out of sync, which I don't want to do. That's not very nice. So what I actually want to do is I want to do a bit of an asymmetric trim, just left clicking on either of the two cut points there, and you can see I'm now doing a nice simple cut, but not affecting the sync either way in my sequence. And what's really nice is that actually I can do that a little bit more of a complicated way, as I can actually do. Oops, close that. I can actually do multi-point trimming at the same time, depending on, again, what it is you're trying to do. So the point of showing that is I'm not going into any trim mode. I've just got to know where I click in order to unjoin necessary tracks to be able to do very, very powerful stuff. It gets really interesting when you've got multiple tracks and you've got pieces of audio that are down the timeline that you don't want to lose sync with other pieces. Very simple, just click each track and open it up. So from here, we want to go to the VFX tab. One of the nice things we've added recently is the new scopes down here. I'm just going to make this a little bit bigger so you can see. There's a whole wealth of different scopes available here. If I just open up the settings menu here, you can see I've got nearly all my scopes on. If I don't want to see them, I just toggle them on or off. I'll just put them all back on. But one of the nice things we've got here is that I can create a split view. So I'm going to call that Matte BFE demo. And what I want to do is I'm going to have a four-way split. So you can see I can, depending on how I want my scopes to appear, I'm going to have a four-way split. I'll have that as YCCBR. Actually, and then we'll have CIE, histogram. Well, yeah, that's probably quite nice. There we go. In fact, I'll have the vector scope and click create. And you can see there we've got all those four scopes down there. Again, you can resize. I'll show perhaps a little bit more of a flexible layout. But what's nice here is that if I play that back, they're all updating in real time. Okay, we're streaming a proxy, but whether that was the HD, the high res, or not, we'd still get real time performance on four different scopes down there in our area there. So moving on from there, you can see on the VFX tab we've got a whole host of different effects, from colors to, in fact what I'll do is I'll just show you the adding in a color correction, drag and drop it to the timeline, and again it's a simple but effective, and I don't have to render any of this. So you can see as I'm changing the clip there, I could actually be changing that as it's playing back. So again, it's sort of real-time effects in here, but what we've also added is plugin support. So there's OpenFX plugin support, which is Boris Continuum, New Blue, Total Effects, Sapphire, various other vendors as well. And you can see if I click on the settings menu here and look at my plugins menu, you can see that I've got quite a lot on there. So if you want to be able to find something, so for example, let's just jump to my next clip over here. Let's say I want to add in a, whoops, no, I don't want to do that. I want to be over there in the lens flare. If I could spell lens, there we go. And then what I can do there, so this is a Boris Continuum effect. I'm going to drag that down to my timeline down here, and you can see I can pick up that flare point and I can move that any which way I want. change the position of that. A whole wealth of options down here that I can enable, disable. But you'll see if I try and play that back now, although it's still a proxy, it's a pretty hardcore effect. I need to be able to render it. So I can right click down here and I can choose render. It gives me the options to where I'm going to render that to, the type of file I'm going to do that to a MOV, to a ProRes MOV, because we've now got Apple ProRes certification, so we can read in every ProRes file format and export to them on all 3 platforms as well. I'll just choose a low-res proxy for that, so it's nice and quick. But you can see what that does. That starts off a background task. So it doesn't stop me working. I'll just get rid of that. It doesn't stop me working. So I could be going over to another part of my sequence here. I could do something really horrendous, like actually taking out a large chunk of my sequence and leaving black. And you can see it's not affected the render in any way, although everything's shifted. What it's actually done, finished it in the background, and it's given me a little link there to where that file is. And that's a separate file, another piece of media that's separate now in the project. But it doesn't stop me from being able to right-click that render and say, you know what, I made a mistake, I'll reconfigure that, and then I can go back in and start making some changes to the sequence. See, if I go back to the Edit tab, you can see there's that rendered file that we created, and that's a separate piece of media. So if I wanted to, I could actually just bring that back in, drag and drop, and it's back on the timeline down there. The other thing I'll show you is with the addition of the video effects, we've now got audio plugins as well. And you can see I've got various plugins from, not video, they're audio. This is a Mac, so I get all the AU audio units free. I've got Waves, Acusonus, Isotope, they're all supported on Lightworks. And you can see I've got a whole host of them available here. Let's see if I can spell clean. No, I cannot. Audio cleanup. So this is a tool from the Acusonus providers. Launched their plugin, really simple, really nice and effective. You can go in, I can just add in a noise remover, and from there I can actually decide how much of that I want on my clip. So really nice way of being able to get effect audio. We've also got some of our own plugins coming over the next few weeks and months. But going back here, let me just call that sequence 1. Yeah, what I want to do now is I want to make this, so I've been working with the content that Jesper shared with me. Now I've made something, I want him to be able to look at that, and I want other people to be able to look at that. So I can export my my sequence here. You can see we've got a whole host of social media formats which a lot of our users use. All of our pro users, we've got AAFs, XMLs, EDLs to be able to interchange between other applications should you need to. They also come back, so we support all of those coming back in as well. And then we've got media files and we've got camera file formats that Peter mentioned earlier as well. I'm going to select MOV. You can see I've got various options there for codecs, for formats, etc. I will just do a small section of this because I don't think we need to see the entire thing. So what I'll do is I'll export that as a small section, and then I want to send that to the folder that was shared with me. So that's the share link that I added at the start, which Jesper added. And the really nice thing down here is that once that file is created, I can ask it to run a QC check on that as well. So we did a QC check at import. So also I'm going to tell it to do a one at the completion as well. So it should, what that will do, in fact what I'll do is I'll just set that going. That's should be uploading. Again, it doesn't stop me working because that's all happened in the background. It's happened very, very quickly. But what that would have done is if I'd had the QC working there, is it would have actually flagged up this area here saying there's a black area in there, you need to go and sort it. So if I go back now to our folder, you can see there's our sequence that we uploaded, or that we've sent from our timeline that we can now take into another Lightworks or into back to IO Gates, and somebody could be reviewing and proving what I've been working on. The one last thing, I'm sorry, I'm talking all the air out. Just try and get back to Lightworks here. Is we talked about the flexible layout and what we can do with that. So I'll just show you that just very, very, very briefly. So we can go into the same project in a much more flexible way. So you can see the fixed layout's gone. I've got a toolbar here on the left-hand side, and what I can do there is I can actually decide what I want to see and where I want it to be added. So I could have, for example, a bin just open over here. I could open a source viewer. That's enormous. I don't need that. I need that a little bit smaller. I might have the file card open for that particular clip, and then I may have a sequence as well, which is also too big. But you can see that I can actually start to set the canvas, as it were, as I see fit. And you're probably asking about the shark. We've all got it on our shirts. Still works. It's still there. Her name's Lucy, and we can just use her to clear up our desktop, and she'll swim back to the corner. And then if we tickle her tummy, we get all the content back from our project. So hopefully that's much more of a layout for using multiple displays and whatnot. So I'm going to breathe a huge sigh of relief because that was a fairly painless demo. So thank you.
Thanks, Matt. We covered a lot there. So that by going back to a share link, that could be a download, or it could be a review and approve, whatever you want on that, without having to know what a share link is or do anything about it. Once the configuration, the interface tells people what permissions they've got, what share links they have, they then exist for the project. And we occasionally run surveys to our pro customers and say, what's the thing that you like most about Lightworks? And they all say the flexible layout. So the accessibility, the ability to start using Lightworks by using the fixed layout is incredibly important, but ultimately people like you would be using flexible, and you've got templates for various things that you might be doing. Okay, any questions? I'm not sure if we made it clear, but Lightworks is available on Windows, Mac, and Linux as well. So it's, I think, the only multi-platform editor. So any good questions? Yes, if they're not good.
They're not good. Two things. Firstly, IO Gates. Can it be branded for your company?
Of course.
Okay, that's that. The second one is, when you're using streaming proxies from the what speed of internet do you need to have for that to work properly? Is it like you have to be in a post house at this where you've got, or can I be in a cafe on
So David's giving me the eye because I'm supposed to repeat the question so that people back home can actually hear what's going on. So the first question is, can you brand it? And yes, there are multiple ways you can brand things. According to actually a certain amount is how much you pay. Because if you've got an infinite number of people branding things separately and having separate emails, then that can actually consume an awful lot of the services. So we have to talk to you about how much you're actually going to use rather than a fixed price plan. And the other question is, do you need to have mega fast internet to be able to do this? Well, the proxies can be pretty small. They can be 1 megabit. So theoretically, you could use a 1 megabit internet line, but actually you would need more, sort of 15 megabit, 8 megabit would be. Yeah.
So it's not like, yes.
No. Yeah. If you're uploading a lot of high-res media, that would be an issue. But and we're working on something to make sure that that's kind of easier for people. That Lightworks has all the transcoding and stuff inside it, so we can use the We will use the Lightworks front end to make proxies and do all that good stuff, which, I mean, did you all pick up on this? No having to link media, relinking media, switching between proxies and things like that. It's all completely seamless to the user. We'll make sure that's the front end for people uploading to IO Gates. Any other good questions? Sorry about that.
Do you have anything similar to script sync?
Script sync? No, unfortunately we don't. We've been working on something in the background, which is a project that was put to one side slightly because of the IO Gates integration and stuff, using AI to look at text, speech to text, and start looking at synchronizing those. But we've had to put that to one side for a bit. So it's not something that we're not completely aware of and want to do. It's just at the moment we've had to put that to one side for the sake of this very secure, very easy to use kind of sharing. It's really important. You don't need a pile of storage that costs 60 to 100,000 quid next to you to be able to collaborate with your colleagues, work with each other. You don't need to understand really complex MAM systems, checking in media, all of those other kind of linking things, consolidating, relinking. It's made very, very simple here. So we thought that would be the best thing to do quickly. Sorry, the question was, do you have any script sync? And I said, I'm sorry, we don't. But we've got other stuff. No, sorry. Any other questions, please?
Yeah, I was wondering, with regards to flicking between frame rates and fly, with the playback, that's all well and good, but when it comes to actual delivery of the file, how is the motion of the frame rate differences being handled? Is there frame duplication, is it interpolation, or can you make a selection?
It's just duplication or throwing away frames. There's no interpolation.
Yeah.
So it's crude, but it's a way of getting a result, as it were.
The question was, when delivering multi-frame rate and frame rate changes from one thing to another, do you have like motion flow, interpolation, those kind of things? Currently, we just use the frame dropping or repetition. There are plugins that you can use to make smooth results, but at the moment we just do that duplication and dropping.
It can also be done in IOGates.
Oh, sorry. IOGates has the capability of doing that frame rate conversion.
It's not LWKS quality, but it's actually very good.
Yeah, well that's 30,000 quid, so.
It's being used on Eurovision files.
It's not a welcome. Not
So-
buying it.
Oh, sorry.
It's not a welcome.
Yes, sorry, it changed hands.
Just get out.
It's not
Okay.
a 30,000 option.
Yeah, yeah. The website has, about 10 minutes before we started, the IOGates website update with the LWKS look, the new pricing, the new models, the new packages. So there are what we call pro users, which is 5 user accounts, team users, 3 user accounts of pro, team users, 10 user accounts, and then the dailies packages. They're all up there if you want to have a look at, but please do take our business cards. We're not facelessly hidden behind too many things. We'd be very happy to answer your questions.
Can I ask one more?
Yes, please.
So we're a Windows-based mini facility. We use Frame.io. In order to use watch folders, we have to send them via a Mac Mini to upload to Frame.io. So with the
Desktop app. It's Windows-based also.
it's Windows-based
Linux,
also.
Yep.
Windows, and Mac.
The question is, do you have to be having separate, if you're Windows-based, can you use all of the capabilities of Lightworks and or the IOGates React without having to have a Mac and other stuff, which is a bit inconvenient? And all of our products are Windows and Mac. And
So could it take the place of Frame.io in that instance, do you think?
I believe it could, yes. And I think you'd be saving a shed load of money, and you have more capabilities.
Okay.
We believe we have more features inside IOGates React than you can get anywhere else, and the prices are staggeringly good because we don't use the world's most expensive hosting mechanism. We use one that people can afford. Okay. Well, if you look at, is this controversial? But if you look at the results of Amazon, all of their profits come from AWS. They charge a lot. Their egress charges are insanely expensive, and we don't have egress charges.
So you charge by the terabyte as well?
We charge by the amount of storage that you have online and nearline. There are things that we do have to talk to you about. If you want to have watermarking and various digital rights managements and transcoding, you could have 100 people. There's no limit on the number of people who can submit work in the share links. So you could have 100 people working on 100 files, and instantly you've got 10,000 files being processed. So that could, you could scale that to infinity. So we need to talk to you about fair usage policy for that. But the prices are still very attractive. be happy to help you out, Ferg. Okay, trust me. Okay. Yeah, thanks. Thank you. Is there any more questions? No. Okay. Well, I don't know. It's a bit of a celebration for us. So, you know, the bar's open, and you know, thank you very much, and thank you for hosting us. You know, if I thought, you know, could we have a webinar to the BFE just in advance of a UK show to launch, you know, like relaunch Lightworks back to you and show this cool stuff with the IO Gates React and reconnect as human beings. I mean, I couldn't have thought of anything that would have been nicer to do. And yes, that's right. Yeah, these it really was cross fingers to get this all done. And you know, I'm extremely grateful for you allowing us to kind of come in here and tell you what we're up to. So thanks very much.